Ethan Cole stood quietly in the grand hall of the Galactic Council, his eyes scanning the room filled with representatives from across the stars. The hall was enormous, its ceiling glowing with a soft light that mimicked a sunrise. Strange creatures of all shapes and sizes sat or hovered around a large circular table, their voices blending into a low hum of conversation. Ethan felt small, not because of the size of the room, but because of the weight of what was happening. This was humanity's chance to prove itself among the older, more advanced civilizations of the galaxy. Beside him, Mia Dawson shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She was his assistant, a young woman with sharp instincts and a fiery temper. Ethan appreciated her passion, but today, he needed her to stay calm. He could feel the tension in the air. Something was about to happen, and he wasn't sure if it would be good or bad for Earth. The meeting began with formalities, each species taking turns to speak about their achievements and concerns. Ethan listened carefully, nodding at the right moments, making notes on his tablet. But then came Varnock, a tall reptilian creature with scales that shimmered like molten gold. His voice was deep and raspy, and when he spoke, the entire room seemed to grow quieter. Today, Varnock began, his yellow eyes scanning the room. We must address the presence of a new member among us. Humanity. He paused, letting the word hang in the air. Ethan felt his jaw tighten, but he forced himself to remain still. Varnock continued, his tone dripping with disdain. They call themselves intelligent, yet their technology is primitive. Their history is short, marked by conflict and destruction. They are children playing with fire, unaware of the dangers they pose to themselves and to others. A ripple of laughter spread through the room. Some council members smirked, while others simply nodded in agreement. Ethan's heart sank, but he kept his expression neutral. Beside him, Mia's hands clenched into fists. She leaned closer to whisper, "How dare they? We've done nothing to deserve this kind of disrespect." Ethan placed a hand on her arm to calm her. "Not now," he murmured softly. He knew she was right. Varnock's words were cruel and unfair, but reacting emotionally wouldn't help. Humanity had worked too hard to earn its place here. Losing their temper would only make things worse. Varnock went on, his voice growing louder. "Why should we waste our time teaching them when they clearly have so much to learn? Perhaps it would be better if they stayed within their own solar system, tinkering with their toys, rather than pretending to belong among the stars." The room erupted into murmurs of agreement. Ethan felt a flush of shame, not for himself, but for everyone back on Earth who had hoped for acceptance. He thought of the scientists, engineers, and explorers who had spent years pushing boundaries, striving to make humanity worthy of this moment. And now, their efforts were being dismissed as insignificant. When Varnock finished speaking, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to Ethan, waiting for his response. For a moment, he considered standing up, defending humanity's honor, and reminding them of everything Earth had accomplished. But something stopped him. He looked around the room, studying the faces of the council members. Some were smug, others indifferent, but none truly understood what humanity was capable of. Ethan took a deep breath and smiled faintly. "Thank you for your thoughts," he said calmly, his voice steady. "I assure you, humanity has much to offer, perhaps more than you realize." With that, he sat back down, leaving the room buzzing with curiosity. Mia glanced at him, surprised by his restraint. "What are you planning?" she asked under her breath. "You'll see," Ethan replied, his gaze fixed ahead. He didn't need to shout or argue. Actions would speak louder than words. And soon, the galaxy would know exactly what humanity was made of. Back on their diplomatic ship, Ethan paced the narrow corridor of the cabin, his mind racing. The hum of the engines was the only sound breaking the silence. Mia sat at the small desk, replaying the recording of Varnock's speech on her tablet. Her fingers tapped impatiently against the surface as she glanced up at Ethan. "We can't just sit here and do nothing," Maya said, her voice rising with frustration. "They insulted us, Ethan. They made us look weak. You need to say something, anything, to show them we're not going to take this lying down. Ethan stopped pacing and turned to face her. His expression was calm, but there was a fire in his eyes that Mia hadn't seen before. "I know how you feel," he said slowly. "Believe me, I want to respond just as much as you do. But shouting back or making empty threats won't help. If we act rashly, we'll only prove Varnock right." Mia frowned. "Then what are we supposed to do? Just let them walk all over us?" "No," Ethan replied firmly. He walked over to the desk and leaned against it, his arms crossed. "We're going to show them exactly who we are. Not by yelling or boasting, but by doing something they can't ignore. Something that proves humanity isn't just some primitive species stumbling around in the dark." Mia tilted her head, curiosity replacing her frustration. "What do you have in mind?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, then reached into his bag and pulled out a small metallic cube wrapped in a soft cloth. He placed it gently on the desk between them. "This," he said simply. Mia stared at the object, confused. "What is it?" "It's an artifact," Ethan explained. "One of the oldest and most mysterious objects ever discovered on Earth. It was found deep in the ocean, buried under layers of sediment. Scientists believe it belonged to an ancient civilization that existed long before humans." Mia picked up the cube, turning it over in her hands. "But why bring this now? What does it have to do with Varnock or the Council?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Because it's not just an artifact. It's proof of humanity's greatest strength, our ability to adapt and innovate. For decades, our researchers studied this cube, trying to figure out its purpose. Eventually, they discovered it was a universal translator, capable of converting any language into something understandable. But here's the thing. We didn't stop there. We improved it." Mia's eyes widened. "You mean, we enhanced it?" "Exactly," Ethan said, nodding. "Our scientists modified the cube to make it faster, more accurate, and far more advanced than its original design. It can now translate even the most complex languages, including those used by the council members, with perfect clarity." Mia set the cube back on the desk, her expression thoughtful. "So you're planning to show it to them, to prove we're smarter than they think?" "Not just smarter," Ethan corrected. "We're showing them that humanity doesn't rely on brute force or arrogance to succeed. We solve problems. We learn. We grow. That's what makes us different and stronger than they realize." Mia nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her face. "It's brilliant, but will it be enough to change their minds?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted, "but it's a start. And if we play our cards right, it might just shake things up more than anyone expects." As the ship continued its journey through the stars, Ethan spent the rest of the evening preparing for the next day's session. He reviewed notes, double-checked the cube's functionality, and rehearsed what he would say. Maya stayed by his side, offering suggestions and encouragement. Together, they worked late into the night, determined to turn the tide in humanity's favor. When they finally retired to their quarters, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The council wasn't likely to change its opinion overnight. But one thing was certain. Humanity wouldn't back down. No matter what happened, Ethan was ready to fight. Not with anger or aggression, but with intelligence and determination. And tomorrow, the galaxy would see exactly what that meant. The next morning, Ethan entered the council chamber with a calm confidence that surprised even himself. He carried the small metallic cube wrapped in cloth, cradling it carefully in his hands. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as representatives from various species took their seats. Varnock sat across the table, his golden scales glinting under the soft light. When he noticed Ethan's arrival, a smirk played on his lips, as if he expected nothing impressive to come from the human diplomat. Ethan ignored the smug expression and walked to the center of the room. All eyes turned to him as he placed the cube gently on the podium. For a moment, there was complete silence. The council members leaned forward, curious about what this strange object could be. Even Varnock raised an eyebrow, though his expression remained skeptical. Before we proceed, Ethan began, his voice steady and clear. I would like to share something with you all. This artifact was discovered deep within Earth's oceans, buried for thousands of years. It belonged to an ancient civilization that existed long before humanity. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. Mia, seated nearby, watched intently, her heart pounding. She knew how important this moment was, not just for Ethan, but for all of humanity. The council members exchanged glances, some intrigued, others dismissive. Varnock folded his arms, clearly unimpressed. What makes this artifact remarkable, Ethan continued, is its purpose. After decades of study, our scientists determined that it is a universal translator, a device capable of converting any language into comprehensible terms. However, he paused again, his gaze sweeping across the room. This is no ordinary relic. Humanity has taken it further. With that, Ethan activated the cube. A soft hum filled the air as a holographic display emerged above it, projecting shimmering images and symbols. The council members gasped in unison. Before them, each of their own languages appeared, written, spoken, and translated instantly into a common tongue everyone could understand. Varnock's jaw tightened as he saw his own words from the previous day displayed in perfect clarity. Every insult, every condescending remark, was now laid bare for all to see. Other council members whispered among themselves, amazed by the demonstration. Some leaned closer, studying the translations with wide eyes. Ethan let the moment linger before speaking again. This device was not created by humans, he said, his tone respectful but firm. But it was improved by us. Our researchers enhanced its capabilities far beyond its original design. It can now capture nuances like sarcasm, emotion, and cultural context, things that are often lost in translation. The room fell silent once more. Even Varnock seemed unable to hide his unease. Ethan took a step back, allowing the council to process what they had just witnessed. He didn't need to say much more. The cube spoke for itself. Humanity wasn't just capable of understanding advanced technology. They were capable of improving it. Mia smiled faintly, proud of how smoothly the demonstration had gone. She glanced around the room and noticed a shift in the atmosphere. Some council members looked impressed, while others appeared uneasy. For the first time, doubt crept into their expressions. Perhaps humanity wasn't as primitive as they had assumed. When Ethan finally broke the silence, his voice carried a quiet authority. What this artifact represents is humanity's greatest strength, our ability to adapt, innovate, and build upon the foundations left by those who came before us. We may be young compared to many of you, but we are eager to learn and to contribute. As he returned to his seat, the room remained hushed. Varnock's earlier mockery felt hollow now, overshadowed by the undeniable proof of human ingenuity. Ethan didn't celebrate yet. He knew the battle wasn't over. But for the first time since arriving, he felt a flicker of hope. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had just made its mark. The room was still buzzing with quiet murmurs as Ethan sat back down. Maya leaned closer to him, her eyes shining with excitement. "That was incredible," she whispered. "Did you see their faces? They didn't expect anything like that." Ethan nodded slightly, keeping his expression calm. He could feel the shift in the air. The council members, who had laughed at Varnock's insults just a day ago, now looked uncertain. Some scribbled notes on their tablets, while others whispered to their neighbors. Even Varnock seemed uneasy, his golden scales shimmering faintly under the light as he shifted in his seat. But Ethan knew this wasn't the end. Winning respect wasn't as simple as one impressive demonstration. He had to keep pushing, keep showing them why humanity deserved its place among the stars. And so, when it was his turn to speak again, he stood up slowly, his movements deliberate and measured. "Before we move on," Ethan began, his voice steady and clear, "I want to address something important. Many of you have questioned humanity's worth, calling us primitive or unworthy of our seat here. I understand your concerns. After all, we are newcomers to this galaxy. Our history is short compared to yours. But let me remind you of something." He paused, letting his words hang in the air. The room grew quieter, the council members leaning forward slightly, curious about what he would say next. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons," Ethan continued. "It's our ability to adapt, to overcome challenges, to learn from our mistakes and grow stronger because of them. We've faced wars, disasters, and countless hardships, and every time, we've risen above them. That resilience is what defines us." Varnock snorted softly, but Ethan ignored him. Instead, he turned to face the other council members, his gaze steady. "When we discovered that artifact, we didn't just study it. We improved it. We took something ancient and made it better, not for ourselves, but for everyone. That's what humanity does. We don't hoard knowledge or power. We share it. We build bridges, not walls." A few council members nodded, clearly moved by his words. Others exchanged thoughtful glances, their earlier smirks replaced by contemplative expressions. Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they were starting to see humanity in a new light. But then Varnock spoke up, his deep voice cutting through the silence. "Your words are poetic, human," he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "But actions matter more than speeches. Prove to us that your species is truly ready to join the galactic stage." Ethan didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled faintly. "Very well," he replied. "Let me show you another example of what humanity can do." With that, he activated the cube again, this time projecting a series of images and videos onto the chamber's central screen. The footage showed Earth's progress over the centuries, humans building cities, exploring space, curing diseases, and working together to solve global problems. It also highlighted moments of unity, people from different nations and cultures coming together to help one another during times of crisis. The council members watched silently, some visibly moved by what they saw. When the presentation ended, Ethan stepped forward once more. "This is who we are," he said simply. "Imperfect, yes, but determined, willing to work hard and make sacrifices for the greater good. If given the chance, we will contribute to this council, not as followers, but as equals." For a moment, no one spoke. Then, a council member from a bird-like species called the aviaran broke the silence. "You've given us much to think about, Ambassador Cole," she said, her voice soft but sincere. Others murmured in agreement, their earlier hostility fading. Mia glanced at Ethan, her pride evident. He had done it. He had turned the tide. But as Ethan returned to his seat, he knew the fight wasn't over. Varnock was still watching him, his yellow eyes narrowed. Whatever happened next, Ethan was ready. Humanity had taken a stand, and the galaxy would never see them the same way again. Later that evening, Ethan sat alone in his quarters aboard the diplomatic ship, staring out at the stars through the small viewport. The events of the day replayed in his mind, the stunned faces of the council members, Varnock's growing unease, and the cautious respect he had begun to see in some of their eyes. It was progress, but Ethan knew better than to celebrate too soon. Winning a battle didn't mean winning the war. A soft knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called out. Maya stepped inside, holding a tablet in her hands. Her expression was serious, almost worried. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. Ethan frowned. "What is it?" Mia handed him the tablet. On the screen was a private message from Kale, a counselor representing the Silverians, an aquatic species known for their calm and logical approach to politics. Kel's words were brief but alarming. Asterisk, "Be careful, Ambassador Cole. Varnock and his allies view humanity's progress as a threat. They may try to undermine Earth's standing in the galaxy." Asterisk. Ethan read the message twice, his jaw tightening. He had suspected as much, But hearing it confirmed made it all the more real. It was only a matter of time, he muttered, handing the tablet back to Mia. They can't handle the idea of a new species rising so quickly. Mia crossed her arms, her frustration evident. So what do we do? Sit back and let them sabotage us? No, Ethan replied firmly. But we need to be smart about this. If we act rashly, we'll play right into their hands. We need to prepare for whatever they throw at us, and make sure we have allies on our side. Mia nodded slowly, like Cal. Exactly, Ethan said. Cal's warning proves he's sympathetic to our cause. We should reach out to him and other neutral council members. If we can build a coalition, we'll have a better chance of standing against Varnock and his faction. The two of them spent the next hour reviewing the council's membership list, identifying potential allies. Some, like the Aviran counselor who had praised Ethan earlier, seemed open to supporting humanity. Others were harder to read, their loyalties unclear. But one thing was certain: humanity couldn't face this challenge alone. As they worked, Ethan's communicator buzzed with an incoming message. It was a news update from Earth. Back home, people were celebrating his success at the Council Summit. Clips of his speech and the cube demonstration had been broadcast across the planet, sparking pride and hope among millions. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. What would happen if they failed? What if Varnock succeeded in pushing humanity out of the galactic community? We can't let them down, Ethan said suddenly, breaking the silence. His voice was quiet but resolute. Maya looked up from the tablet. We won't, she replied. Not as long as we keep fighting. By the time they finished their planning session, it was late. Exhausted but determined, Ethan sent a carefully worded message to Cal, thanking him for the warning and asking for advice on navigating the council's politics. He also drafted similar messages to other potential allies, ensuring they sounded respectful and non-confrontational. As Maya left the room, Ethan leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. He thought about Earth, its vast oceans, towering mountains, and bustling cities. Humanity wasn't perfect, but it was resilient. And no matter what happened, Ethan knew one thing for certain: they wouldn't give up without a fight. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Ethan was ready. With careful strategy and unwavering determination, he would protect humanity's place among the stars. Whatever Varnock and his allies had planned, Ethan would meet it head-on. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's future depended on what happened next. The next day, the council chamber was tense. Ethan could feel it the moment he walked in. Representatives from various species sat stiffly in their seats, their expressions guarded. Varnock's golden scales seemed to glint brighter than usual, and his sharp eyes followed Ethan as he took his place at the table. Something big was about to happen. When the session began, Varnock wasted no time. He stood up, his deep voice echoing through the room. Before we proceed, he said, his tone cold and commanding, we must address a serious concern. Humanity's rapid progress poses a threat to the stability of the galaxy. Their reckless ambition could lead to chaos if left unchecked. Ethan's heart sank, but he kept his face calm. Beside him, Mia clenched her fists under the table. Varnock wasn't just criticizing humanity. He was setting the stage for something worse. Therefore, Varnock continued, I propose an ultimatum. Humanity must agree to limit its technological advancements and submit to oversight by older civilizations. If they refuse, they will be stripped of their membership in this council and barred from further participation in galactic affairs. A wave of murmurs swept through the room. Some council members looked uneasy, while others nodded in agreement. Ethan felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the moment he had feared. Varnock was trying to force humanity into submission, painting them as dangerous simply because they were growing stronger. Ethan stood slowly, his movements deliberate. He knew this was his chance to respond, but he had to choose his words carefully. Counselor Varnock, he began, his voice steady and clear, your concerns are understandable, Every species wants to ensure peace and stability. But limiting humanity's progress is not the answer. Varnok's eyes narrowed. Explain yourself, human. Ethan took a step forward, addressing the entire room. Humanity's growth has always been driven by a desire to improve, not just for ourselves, but for others. We've shared our knowledge, built alliances, and worked tirelessly to earn our place here. To ask us to stop learning, to stop striving, would be to deny who we are. And if you force us out, we won't disappear. We'll continue to grow, to explore, and to build our own path among the stars. The room fell silent. Varnok's jaw tightened, but Ethan pressed on. You can try to hold us back, but you'll only prove what we've always known. Fear cannot stop progress. Humanity will rise, with or without your approval. Mia glanced at Ethan, pride and worry mingling in her expression. She knew his words were bold, maybe even risky, but they were also true. Humanity couldn't afford to back down now. As the council members debated Varnok's proposal, Ethan leaned over to Mia. We need to act fast, he whispered. Reach out to Kale and the others we contacted last night. Let them know we're counting on their support. Mia nodded and quickly sent messages to their potential allies. Meanwhile, Ethan focused on the discussion unfolding around him. Some council members argued that Varnok's ultimatum was too harsh, while others sided with him, claiming humanity was too unpredictable. The division was clear, and Ethan realized this was their chance to turn the tide. By the end of the session, no decision had been made. The council agreed to reconvene the next day to vote on Varnok's proposal. As Ethan and Mia left the chamber, they knew the real battle was just beginning. Back on the ship, they worked late into the night, strategizing and preparing for what lay ahead. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's fate hung in the balance. But Ethan refused to give up. Whatever happened next, he would fight for Earth's future, with every ounce of strength he had. The final day of the Council Summit arrived, and the atmosphere in the chamber was electric. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the room, their voices low but urgent as they discussed what would happen next. Ethan stood near the center of the room, his expression calm but resolute. Beside him, Mia held a tablet, ready to assist at a moment's notice. They had spent the night preparing for this moment, reaching out to allies and gathering support. Now, it was time to see if their efforts would pay off. When the session began, Varnok wasted no time. He rose to his feet, his golden scales catching the light as he addressed the council. Today we decide the fate of humanity, he declared, his voice loud and commanding. Will we allow them to continue unchecked, risking chaos, or will we protect the stability of the galaxy by placing limits on their progress? Ethan listened carefully, his mind racing. He knew Varnok's words were meant to sway undecided council members, painting humanity as a threat. But Ethan also knew that fear could be overcome with trust, and that's exactly what he intended to build. As the discussion continued, Kale, the Silverian counselor, spoke up. His voice was calm but firm. Counselor Varnok raises valid concerns, he said, but humanity has shown us something important. Their ability to adapt and innovate is not a danger, it's an opportunity. By working together, we can learn from each other and grow stronger as a galactic community. A few other council members nodded in agreement, including the Aviaran representative who had praised Ethan earlier. Slowly but surely, the tide began to shift. Voices that had once been silent now spoke up in humanity's defense, pointing to Ethan's demonstration of the cube and his respectful yet determined approach. When it was Ethan's turn to speak, he stepped forward, his heart pounding but his voice steady. I understand your fears, he said, addressing the entire council. Change can be unsettling, especially when it comes quickly. But humanity isn't asking for special treatment. We're asking for a chance to contribute, to learn, and to prove ourselves as equals. If you push us away, you'll only drive us to forge our own path. And I promise you this, humanity will never stop striving to reach the stars. His words echoed through the room, leaving a profound silence in their wake. For the first time, many council members seemed to truly consider what Ethan was saying. Humanity wasn't just a species, they were a symbol of resilience and hope. Finally, the vote took place. One by one, the council members cast their decisions. The tension in the room was palpable as the results were tallied. When the final count was announced, Ethan felt a surge of relief. Humanity would remain a member of the Galactic Council, but with conditions. Earth would be required to share its advancements openly and work closely with other species to ensure mutual growth. As the session ended, Ethan turned to Mia, a faint smile crossing his face. "We did it," he said softly. Mia grinned, her eyes shining with pride. "Not bad for a couple of humans, huh?" Back on Earth, news of the outcome spread quickly. People celebrated in the streets, cheering for Ethan and his team. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through aggression or arrogance, but through determination and ingenuity. That evening, Ethan stood alone on the ship's observation deck, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. Mia joined him after a while, leaning against the railing. "What happens now?" she asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out at the stars, his mind filled with possibilities. "Now," he said finally, "we keep moving forward. This is only the beginning."